What's going on, guys? J-Pow Music here, and today I have some updates regarding to the M8 Headless. I actually got the M8 Headless to work on a couple of devices. The R36S still isn't one of them, and I just wouldn't recommend using the R36S still for my last video. But let's talk about some devices that do actually work on this. So, and when it works and you're able to start using it and seeing the power, it's pretty awesome. It's really awesome. So, I want to talk about the devices to recommend that are going to make the easiest way to do it, or that are going to make it easier for you, the easiest, less time spent. So make it very easy for you to do it. Also, shout out to Rotorodamus. He has a video that has bunch of views, 18,000 views for his process on how he put it on the R36S. I just didn't have any luck with that one, but he created a image file for ArcOS where if you put in the SD card, it just recognizes the M8 software, so you can't play games on that particular SD card, but you can use the M8 software, and that actually worked on this. And this is the Battle XP G350. Okay, so there's a lot of these, a lot of off-brand clone devices, but this is actually a pretty legit one. It's still a clone device, but it's actually a really great quality. This feels a lot better, 10 times better, night and day, compared to the R36S. The R36S, it just has like your standard like clone plastic. This actually almost feels like an Ambernic device. Like, it's actually a really quality plastic they have on here. The buttons are pretty good, actually. They're not super clicky. There's a little bit of a cushion slightly. The buttons, the front facing buttons are fine. The D-pad's a little wonky, but it's usable. It's not. It doesn't like it doesn't get stuck or go out of whack. It's just not as tight as, say, the RG35 XX Plus. That Ambernic device, which is a very similar style to this, except there isn't two analog sticks. It's just the D-pad and the buttons when it comes to the configuration, if you will. But this is a solid device. The headphone amp is solid too. One of the reasons why I like this one is because the headphone amp from the R36S, you had the USB host, the headphone amp in the middle, and the charge, and there was just a whole bunch of electronic issues with the device. I couldn't get it. It was not a clean headphone amp at all. And if you're using it for music, you need that headphone amp to be clean. So this one actually has a pretty clean headphone amp, and it's in this part of the upper right hand corner. So it's separate from the USB, from the charging, and it's USB and OTG on this. So that's the only maybe downside, is that you might want to get an adapter where you can charge it at the same time as you plug in the host cable. But I get a clean headphone amp on this, and all I have to do is just turn it on. I have to give it a little bit of time here. Let's see. Okay, yeah, now it's starting up. And now it's on. I know it's a little dim. And that's probably the one downside, if there was a downside. The screen is a little dim in comparison to, a trim UI brick is arguably the best screen for a device like this. I mean, that screen is amazing. It's really, 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 really great. Yeah, I think that's the only thing, is that it's a little dim on the screen. What you can do is you can adjust the theme on the M8 Headless, and there's like a winter one which it kind of brightens it up a little bit. I'm not sure how to change the brightness on here through the M8, through this particular way of doing it. As far as for this particular image, it might be a little bit different if I used like something else. Like I say, if I just used a different version of ArcOS, the image file, and then put the M8 software on that. I know I'm talking in the weeds here, but main point, screen slightly dimmer. It's not as bright as a trim UI brick, but it works, right? It works. I've actually made some pretty cool stuff on it thus far. Yeah, I'm just really impressed. And it's 50 bucks. 50 bucks. It shows up the next day. And one may say, hey, 50 bucks is actually pretty competitive compared to some other devices, right? There's some Ambernic devices, legit Ambernic devices that are around 40, 50, 60 bucks. So there's a point there, right? And then for this particular device, to be clear, there is no Wi-Fi or Bluetooth on this. You can use a Wi-Fi dongle. I used a Wi-Fi dongle on this just to see if it would work, and it did. But there's no Wi-Fi or Bluetooth on here, so just to be noted. Yeah, but this was a great experience. It was very clear, very clean. Another device that I recommend, which I mentioned earlier in the video, but the RG35XX Plus. That one has Wi-Fi. I'm not sure if it has Bluetooth, but it definitely has Wi-Fi. It's very fast. It's pretty snappy. The D-pad is excellent on the RG35XX Plus. I just returned it because I was just trying out a bunch of different devices to see which one would make sense to use with the M8 Headless. Also, the RG35XS XP, which is like your Game Boy Advance SP style, the clamshell. That one's actually pretty nice. The buttons are a little clicky, but that one is actually pretty nice. The hinge is actually really solid on that. So that one I definitely recommend. The G30 I recommend. There's a video, basically anything that uses either this image file, which it seemed like the G350 so far worked flawless for me for this, as far as for go to Rotodamus, and he has the link for his for that image file, or Nully, the Nully software for the Linux. That I was able to put the M8 M8C onto the SD card, and it worked like for a majority of devices. It worked for the RG35 XX Plus. It worked for the 40 XSH. It worked for the Trim UI brick. There was a few things I had to adjust on it, but I don't remember. But it did end up working on it. Yeah. So I do recommend checking out the M8 Headless software. It is really powerful. It is really powerful, and I even more so recommend it now because there's actual devices that actually work with it. In my experience, I know there's a bunch of YouTube videos online, but that R36S experience was terrible. But G350, literal plug and play. Just go to Rotodamus's channel, download the M8C / ArcOS image. Use Baldassare or Rufus or whatever. Put it on that SD card, slap it in here, turn it on. M8 Headless works. So really great. So yeah, I will be doing a video in the future as far as for how to use the M8 software. It's very deep. There's a lot you can do with it. I'm still learning it myself like everybody else, I feel like. The next thing is I want to actually make it add a USB host onto the chip itself, because that way I can plug in a mini keyboard into the software by using this device. So there's actually a way for me to install the USB host onto the chip. I didn't have to go online and add the scripting and coding and all that nonsense. But just wanted to share that. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. JPowell Music /test this tech. Catch you guys in the next video. Thanks.